before I got
Okay, it's
yelled at.
exactly 3 o'clock. The clock
I
on the
didn't hear
wall
that.
is just slightly slow, so we are going to go ahead and get the land use meeting called to order on time. Let the record reflect that we have Councilwoman Kilpatrick and Councilwoman Diller here, Councilman Sheldon, Cartier, Councilman Smiley, Councilman Weiner, myself, and my aide Valerie is taking notes. Can I have your pleasure on the minutes, please?
Motion to approve is distributed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Okay. First item on the agenda, ordinance 13064, Councilman Smiley.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would just say that the people most affected by this in Fairwinds are well aware of it. I've spoken with them. There's been no objection. As a matter of fact, this particular parcel has been a trash catcher for years. They're looking forward to something positive coming from it. And with that, I would yield to either the developer or land use, whoever's next in line to discuss this.
Okay, well, just a little record, or housekeeping here, Councilman, my co-chair, Retta, is here. I believe land use will give us a presentation before the applicant here, so please come to the table with us and please state your name for the record.
Eileen Fogarty, General Manager, Land Use, Newcastle County. Thank you, sir. Thank you. As you, most of you are probably very familiar with this site. It's on Route 40 between 7 and 13, and the request is to change from NC 6.5 to CR Commercial Regional. What's interesting about the site, and you can see some of it from here, is it's really one of only 4 lots in a 2-mile area that is still residential. It's a 1/4 acre, it's vacant, and it was subdivided sometime back with 2 residential lots. On the proposal, they are looking to build a 2,000 square foot office, which is quite small. There will not be a traffic impact study. They will have across that sort of yellow spot in the middle to the left is a cross easement between the church and this property, so that on Sundays the church can park on this property and they can use each other's access. They're saving the specimen trees on the site. They have a sidewalk on that DelDOT has required. Again, the sidewalk eats a little bit into their nice landscaped buffer area. But in the back, where they're up against the residential, they have a very dense 15-foot buffer. They have a 15-foot buffer on the side where they're adjacent to residential. 43% of the site is open space, and they also are planning a 6-foot fence. In terms of consistency, this site is clearly consistent with the comprehensive plan, neighborhood zoning, because the 40 is decidedly commercial. As I mentioned before, there are only 4 other lots between 13 and 1, 2-mile corridor that are still zoned residential. And of those 4, 2 of them are used currently for non-residential purposes. The buffering will be adequate. We find the office use consistent. The application has gone through a variance procedure. I was talking ahead of myself before. There's a site, and you can see everything around it other than those couple lots is commercial. Next slide. It has gone through a variance procedure and has been granted a variance by the Board of Appeals for minimum lot size. And it has also obtained a 5-foot variance to reduce the required buffer yards. We're recommending approval and including in that recommendation the condition regarding the buffer to the northeast, northwest, and northeast side to be properly screened, and the cross-access easement. Strongly recommend this application.
Strongly.
Well, the poor houses, there are just a couple of them out there, you know.
Ed out of, just shared a little bit of personal history with this area here, but Fairwinds is where I was born and raised. I grew up in that community, and the mayor in there, Judy Burris, came down the street on me more than one time, so I know Councilman Smiley knows her very well. Okay, let's see. Questions for members of council? I think I've seen Councilman Weiner and then Councilman Cartier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, actually, we probably need to have the applicant come forward. Is these questions for
Yeah,
this, or do we want to have the applicant?
For Eileen, General Manager Fogarty.
Okay.
Just to set the record straight, I know you meant to say Board of Adjustment rather than Board of Appeals.
I meant to say Board of Adjustments.
Adjustment without the S.
Adjustment.
Right. And question concerning the pedestrian friendliness has been partially answered, that a sidewalk would be installed on the front side. Would that connect with an existing sidewalk?
Anthony, I believe it does.
I'm not sure where the next closest one's located. That may be an isolated area.
There.
As they get further down to Oriole Drive, there's a few connections made at that point, but there may be one gap in the middle there still.
So over time, as redevelopment takes place, we slowly inch our way, pun intended, to having walkability.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
And it connects internal to the
And
site.
one other question.
Okay, and then I'm going to stop the questions at this point because I've actually deviated from my normal procedure. We needed to have the applicant come and present, and they would probably answer a lot of, give us a lot more information, and would probably answer those questions. So we should have went through the whole presentation before questions, but that's okay. Go ahead, Councilman.
I'd like to talk about its transit orientation. How close is it to a bus route?
Anthony?
Yeah, sure. The distance from there is
It's on Route 40.
closest.
It's right on Route 40.
Yes, I'm thinking, is there a bus stop?
Stop. I'm not sure the closest bus.
Not right in front of it, but there's one, I think it's either one or two streets down.
Not directly in front, but
Not
close.
directly in front, but there's one, I think it's on the next block, it's on the next corner.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we actually wanted to get it relocated because he thought it was unsafe, but Del wouldn't do it. I apologize, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, just trying to get us,
Right, and I appreciate the district council person, Mr. Smiley, with his personal knowledge to state that. I guess my point is, when I always ask those questions, it's so that land use and all of us think about transit orientation and walkability and bikeability as we do land use planning.
Okay, let's have the applicant come forward at this point and give us their presentation.
Reading material, not necessarily for today, but prior to the meeting.
I prefer my reusable binders.
Thank you, Mr. Tackett, members
Is
of
this
council.
items, Mr. Tracy, for the record, or do we already have this?
This is for the record,
Okay.
consideration before next meeting. If you have the whole file, it's very similar to something that was submitted to the planning board, but updated so it references this body as opposed to the planning board. With regard to the application, I would love to say what she said and point to Eileen, but I'll give you a little bit more detail. As she indicated, there are very few residential parcels that actually front on Route 40. I think the reason for that is obvious. You'll see in this letter that Route 40 handles roughly 26,000 cars, average daily trips in the area. It's not exactly conducive to residential development. This property, while zoned residential, is actually vacant. A residentially zoned parcel sits just on the opposite side of Holly Avenue there. You can see, however, that's used as a hotel. There's one or two other residential parcels in this area. Of the 9 parcels that I identified in the exhibit that are listed as residential in the comp plan, half of them are actually used commercially. So this is a way of suggesting that the proposal here is actually more consistent with the comprehensive plan than what actually exists on the property today. It's for the proposed use is for an office. My client, Mr. Abdullah, who's sitting there to my left, runs a pest control business that is, I believe, statewide, not just Newcastle County, or certainly all of Newcastle County. This would be the dispatch center, for lack of a better word, so the folks would come in, get their assignments, and then be gone for the rest of the day. There would be roughly 3 folks there during the course of the day handling the administrative responsibilities. It's parked sufficiently for that. We did not need any relief from the parking requirements of the code. It's a business that ceases operation at roughly 5 o'clock in the evening, does not have hours on the weekend, which makes it a conducive relationship to the church that Ms. Fogarty referencnced earlier. You can see that to the left of the shaded parcel. I think it is an old post office building that's now the church. We are finalizing a cross easement with them that would allow them to utilize our 7 parking spaces when we're not in operation. It provides for a more full rights in, rights out access to our parcel. Ms. Fogarty mentioned we needed 3 variances for this. One is in a master of the obvious. CR zoning requires 1 acre. We can't do anything to get 1 acre here. We received that variance. As she also indicated, we needed to reduce the width of the buffer yards. However, we had our landscape architect review things, and we can still meet the opacity that's required. So a 0.5 opacity is required through a mix of plantings and fencing. We can provide that, but because we don't have the width, it didn't qualify as a 0.5 opacity. So we needed relief from both of those, which the Board of Adjustment granted. As Ms. Fogarty mentioned, and I will echo, this was vetted by both the department as well as the Planning Board. There was no opposition either at the Planning Board or at the Board of Adjustment. The board and the department concluded that this is a rezoning that makes sense, that it is actually consistent with the comprehensive plan, is it a more productive use of the property and a more viable use of the property as opposed to residential. And kind of by way of example, this is a 2,000 square foot building, so I went just out of curiosity to look to see what my first house that I owned in Newcastle County was, which was a townhouse, and it was 2,100 square feet. So the size of this building, 2,000 square feet, is really not out of character with what you would see as a standard residential home. So with that, we would be happy to answer any questions. And before Mr. Weiner asks, I will confirm that there is sidewalk on Route 40, but there is a gap between what we have and what exists, as you could kind of gather from the aerial. I think as you look down towards the left, you can see sidewalk pick up. There is a transit stop roughly 6 or 7 parcels away, is what Mr. Williams, our engineer, had advised me. This is not a customer-oriented business, so we wouldn't be anticipating much transit use, although it's possible that an employee could take the bus here. So.
Mr. Tracy, would you take a minute, please, and point to your project on our state strategies map over there, and also indicate what category you would be in?
It is investment level 1. It's right in this area right here.
Okay. Great. Councilman Cartier?
I guess, the only question of substance I have is, why would you need CR for this and not CN?
CR is pretty much what you find all up and down Route 40 in this area, and we just made it consistent with what was there. We would have still needed, I believe, some of the similar relief that we got from the Board of Adjustment because we're adjacent to residentially zoned parcels. But I believe that's why CR was selected. It's consistent with what's around us.
And just for my locating this in my mind, on Route 40, give me a big cross street area.
It's in between the 1340 split and Route 1.
Okay.
I believe it's, I would defer to Councilman Tackett as he grew up in the area. I believe it's closer to 1 than it is to the 1340
If there's
split.
any landmarks there you can really point to.
It's across from the Honda dealer that's on Route 40, if you're familiar
Oh,
with
yes.
that. I think
Okay.
actually did Honda East, I guess it was at the time.
Councilman Weiner?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tracy, for your gratuitous remarks, and also just in follow-up to your comment about CR rather than CN, the Newcastle County Comprehensive Plan update urges county government to go back to its pre-UDC roots and to adopt greater subcategories of zoning, since we go right from a neighborhood mom and pop shop to a 12-story commercial height with CR, like Christiana Mall. Mm-hmm. And so, as David Culver and I used to talk about, CR Light was recommended, and I'm looking forward to when Land Use Department moves in that direction, Eileen, to have a CR Light category in between CN and CR. Thank you.
And I think as you indicated here, Mr. Tracy, that this zoning that you're seeking is consistent with what's already up and down that area.
Correct.
So we're just going to be,
We're going to have the same zoning classification. In fact, the exhibit that changed right before you started speaking shows that you see nothing but CR as far as the commercial in the area.
so therefore, in this situation, we would want to be consistent.
We're just matching
Councilman
what's there.
Smiley?
And just one added safety benefit to this is there has been an ongoing issue with, on Sundays, vehicles, for people attending that church ending up having to, not having to, but parking out on Route 40. So this will at least get some of those cars off at the side of the highway where they shouldn't be parking anyway. So just a side safety benefit that'll come out of this.
And Mr. Tracy, the sidewalk that you're going to be installing, that'll also be consistent with what's up the road just a little bit, so you will be the same.
I suspect it'd actually be a little bit more than what you see up the road because DelDOT has modified their standards over time, and what you see from that aerial photograph is a lot of those sidewalks that exist on adjacent parcels actually seem to be thinner than
That was
what.
pretty wild.
I think it'll be more like by the transmission shop that went in.
And what about that shopping center there with the vet place in it? I mean, that's pretty wide
Yeah.
blacktop.
This will be a 10-foot wide,
That's what's there.
yeah,
Yeah.
10-foot
Okay.
wide pathway.
As a matter of fact, they let the transmission shop park cars for sale on it.
Okay, thank you. Next, Council President Bullock.
What's the name of that church?
I'm looking at my client.
I don't know.
'Cause they don't actually have a name on it.
They don't own the property, they
Changes.
just lease the building from the property owner who actually lives behind it.
When the churches have, they have attended both the, a representative attended both the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Board meeting as well.
Yeah, I've had them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll find out that information and get it for you, Council
And the
President.
thing is, it's a dead end piece of
Hey, John, is
sidewalk.
there-
Nobody uses it.
Thank you, John.
Cross agreement, let's say if
So you
the
can't even give the public.
center needed extra parking too, would they be able to park in the church parking lot? or-
There's a cross-access easement that's been drafted, and it's going back and forth between the parties. It's more directed towards access way for us, parking for them. We're not anticipating a parking need, because again, the building as planned is going to be staffed by 3 folks, and we have 7 parking spaces. It's not a customer business, that is, customers won't be coming there to get supplies. If this use were to change, the only thing it could accommodate without going back through the process would be an office use and a general office use at that, and there's actually a note on the plan to that effect.
Okay. Additional questions? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And all intents and purposes, you can look, unless you hear otherwise, being on the next council agenda.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody come with any other today? Anybody from council? Yes, Councilman Gordon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make council members aware that even though, we don't have a lot of appointment authority as far as the Board of Adjustment, I've been made aware by the chair that there'll be a need for another member to the Board of Adjustment. So we got one member that apparently is not doing too well, probably is going to look to resign pretty well in the near term. So he just asked me to put the word out to folks. We know of any people in the population of Newcastle County who'd like to volunteer.
Is this the chair or a member?
The chair is saying he's going to have, one of the members may end up leaving. So he just wanted me to alert members of council that there will be a need for a new member to the Board of Adjustment.
Well, certainly we have the ability to identify and recommend, but the
Yes.
appointment would come out of the executive, so.
I'm fully aware of that, and it's a collective effort to find suitable candidates, so just keep that in mind.
Any other? Anybody from the public have other? Okay. Public comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good.